All right, peace to everybody. I am Christ I am disciple. You're watching my channel. We're about to speak on all business being revolution. What does that mean? Um, you know, uh, I said I was going to do this stream, so we're going to keep it in a format that you guys can participate in, which means today I'm not asking for any donations from PayPal. I think this is just a topic that we need to discuss at this time. So we're going to go into it. Basically, why Israel's mission is going to fail. Why it's going to fail. Their mission, according to them, their official mission is that they're going in there to destroy Hamas. But their real mission is to mow the lawn or to exterminate as much Palestinians as possible. And if possible, gain some of Gaza, take over the northern end of Gaza, and if possible, push the Palestinians out of Palestine, out of Gaza. Okay. They're also trying to clean out the West Bank as we speak, settlers in conjunction with the idea for doing that. So this is what's going on. But why will they fail? Okay. So I'm going to go into that, as well as I'm going to speak more about Rebel Moon and just the quotes I'm hearing. The depth of this movie is something, and it's coming out at a time when, again, it's relevant. So we're going to talk a little bit about all of that. But before we can go into that, first of all, if you want to come on here and chop it up with me, I know some people will think that some of these current topics they may be afraid to speak on them. I'm not afraid to speak on anything because I believe that right is right and wrong is wrong. Period. I'm not Muslim. Okay. I'm not Palestinian. I'm not Israeli. Okay. I have a little bit of Jewish heritage in me, but I'm not really a Jew either. Okay. I'm Christian. Okay. And if you know anything about the history of Christianity, it has been littered with genocide. It has been littered with atrocities, both on Christians, on people who are called Wiccans and Celts, and it's been a murderous, bloody thing. So for me to even claim that I am a Christian is quite a thing, and then Islam, and so I'm just saying this to say to you guys, first and foremost, that I'm speaking to you as a human being. I don't, there's various versions of all kinds of religions. So you have to understand that. So don't paint something with a sweeping brush. But in addition to that, there's also the understanding that someone really typifies what they believe by what they do. You don't watch what they say. That's cool. Saying is great, but it's what you do. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. I'm going to start off with scripture. For those people who go into their holy books and stuff, my scripture is the Bible. And unfortunately, the Bible has been used through the ages to imprison, enslave, and oppress people. And even at certain points in time, people couldn't even read it, So there's been a lot of oppression to try to change the political state of things. But we're going to go into this. We're going to go into this in great detail. But let me start off with the scripture, because the scripture sets the tone for what we're about to talk about. Okay. Again, if you want to jump on here as somebody who's a guest, you're invited. You don't have to stay in the chat, but you can talk. If you feel compelled to say something, please feel free to do so. Here's the scripture I'm coming from. So look for Psalms. For those of you who read the Bible or know about the Bible, I'm going to come from Psalms 37. And by the way, let me just make this abundantly clear. People talk about, Islam and Sharia law and all this bullshit. Listen, Islam is very similar to Judaism. Very similar. Very similar. Okay. So if people are saying, in war, clean out this nation or whatever and do genocide, guess what? The Israelites used to do the same thing. Okay. I'm just being real. That's Old Testament times though. And the New Testament times was a bit different. And the reason our laws consider humanity, and we have now what is called war crimes, and genocide and those kinds of things, because of the New Testament laws. You know, Westernization came under Christianity, but it's weird because Christianity violated all those rules at a certain point. And when I say Christianity, I'm talking about a certain sect of Christianity. I'm talking about the pre-Roman Catholic Christianity, and I'm talking also about the Roman Catholic Christianity. Okay, for those of you who don't know, there was a great slaughter. Okay, great slaughter, something called the Inquisition, and then they had the Crusades coming after that. So let me just say, I'm going to try and make this make sense to everybody. Human nature is such, we have a light side and we have a dark side to ourselves. And human nature will take something that's pristine and idealistic and good, and they will take it, manipulate it, okay, and then use it for evil. Okay, based on control. We as human beings, I don't care who you are in the world today, we have a tendency to want to control things beyond what we already have. We have an insatiable appetite, or what we call a greed, for always wanting more and more of something that cannot satisfy us. We want more resources. We want more money. We want more influence. We want more impact. We want to be able to manipulate the pawns on the chessboard. All of us have that tendency within us. Okay. And it's so ironic because no matter your race, no matter your creed, no matter your gender, no matter your age, you must understand something. Humanity is important. I'll show you how insignificant all of these wars and fights are. I want you to understand me. In about 2-3 billion years, the sun will become a red sun. When it does, it will envelop the earth. The earth has a certain drift in its orbit. That means all life on earth will be destroyed. Let me say it again. This is scientific fact. It may seem like a far distance away, but it's already impacting us with our climate, how our climate is changing, etc. Because the sun is increasingly getting hotter. Not only is it that our ozone layer can't maintain it, but it's also increasingly getting hotter because it's expanding and cooling all the time. All right. So just from a scientific perspective, we need to understand we are just one race, and it's called the human race. I know a lot of you want to talk about race and gender and culture and where you listen. It's just the only reason we have different complexions and features is because we migrated to different places on the planet. That's the only reason. It's not, people like to talk about the theory of evolution and all this stuff, and we came from monkeys or whatever. Listen, this is the truth. I'm telling you the truth. It's situational. Your genealogy is much more constructed. But if I, for example, was to go into a very cold region of the world, maybe the North or South Pole, and stay there for a year or two, my complexion would look completely different to what you're seeing right now because of the conditions under which I am. My eyes would start to change color as well. Everything would start to fade off. The reason being because in much more tropical regions, in regions which are closer to the Earth's sun at given points in time, the body has to now adapt to that. That is why you see my complexion as it is right now. That is why you're seeing the features on my body and my hair is the way it is, because it's an adaptation. And adaptation, unlike evolution, is ongoing. It's a part of it. Adaptation is evolution, to be honest with you. It's the same thing. Evolution is just change. But the point is, we evolve based on our environment, and our bodies are so plastic. I can't even explain to half of you. I studied a lot of this stuff. It's called neuroplasticity. We have also different types of plasticity. I don't want to go into all those details, but we are so plastic. You guys have no idea how powerful you are. The average human being transmits, listen to me carefully, transmits more data than any computer on this planet, any singular integrated computer, because we naturally network with other sentient things. We transmit signals all the time. We receive signals all the time at a frequency that can travel the globe like that. The potential of human beings, and that's why I said there's really only one race. There are sub races, okay, based on where you're found on the planet, but there's only one race, because all of us fundamentally function the way I'm speaking to you. Now, there are other beings on this planet that look humanoid, but they are not fully human. That's a whole other topic for another day. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the humans, the ones who are born human. So I'm saying this to say to you guys that every time we divide ourselves and chase after things which pale in comparison to what we are capable of, we are actually denigrating ourselves and bringing ourselves down to levels that are lower than we really should be. I just want to say that. Okay? I just want to say that. All right? When a tremendous catastrophe happens, that is the only time we as human beings start to realize that all these other things are distractions, that all these other things don't matter. Okay? This is why. And I don't care what religion you belong to or what faith, hopefully it boosts you to have a strong desire to care about other human beings. Because whether you like it or not, you are linked to them. What we call universal consciousness is actually, it's not universal, it's really global, but we can also, because everything is a repetition of the same thing, we can find parallels. But nonetheless, universal consciousness for this planet is simply the flowing of thoughts between human beings all the time. That's how Albert Einstein got his ideas. He started to listen. When you're asleep, that is the time when you're most receptive to every signal that's around. That's why the brain lights up in your dreams, because you're very receptive, and there's so much information that you actually receive while you're sleeping. That's why all the great scholars and all the great people who have done great inventions and stuff, they go to sleep on whatever they were working on, and they get that information that comes. Now, if you've studied the Hindus or the religion of the Hindus, you would know that we live in a sea of information. And I don't mean that figuratively. I literally mean that in terms of electromagnetic signals. Okay, we are electromagnetic beings. If you ever watch The Matrix, you'll understand what I'm talking about. We can both influence each other and impact each other's thought processes based on how intense these electromagnetic radiations beam off of us. Okay, so I just wanted to say that so you guys would understand. I am now sort of declassifying, I'm sort of demystifying why it's so very important for us as human beings to more seek to come together. The human beings who do not want us to come together are those who want to manipulate us. They want to control us because they are not the majority. Okay, and they've done it certain ways. Now, so I want you to understand, and again, I am not saying that we should hate those human beings who are trying to control us. I'm not saying that either, because they are also part of the whole pool of information. We need to come together as one species. We have to, if we are to leave this planet within the space of 2 billion years, or even before that, because the way of the climate is changing, and repopulate and recolonize another, bearing in mind that when we do so, we must remember to respect that there may possibly be inhabitants on that planet that we will need to speak to, and as refugees to that planet, we'll need to understand. See, there's a lot going on here, because, see, when we start to speak about things, we always think of things from our perspective, centrist. Okay? By the way, The nearest planet that we could populate would probably be a moon on Jupiter. And we don't know what that climate would look like within that space of time. And again, I'm saying it seems like a long space of time, but the drastic change in the weather patterns is going to start to happen now. That means we need to, Elon Musk, if Elon Musk sees this, we need to get off this planet as soon as possible. We didn't do a great job on the planet to start with. We need to get off, like Noah in the ark. We need to get off this planet and get to another planet, which hopefully is conducive to conditions that we can live on. So Elon Musk's race to go to Mars, bro, forget Mars. You need to try ahead. You need to get warp speed and need to get out of this solar system if we can and find another. That's how serious it is. So for those of you who don't know that, I just thought I'd talk about it because the science of it is there. And it sounds like 2 billion years is so far away, but how uninhabitable will be the Earth before that? Nobody's thinking about that. They're thinking, oh, it's way down the road. No, it could be the next 10 years. It could be the next 15 years where the temperature of the Earth is so hot that it's unsustainable. And therefore, we have to go underground, or we have to dig into the core of the Earth and find refuge there. Understanding that there's a volcanic lava that's in a certain part of the Earth before you can get below that. And you have to hope that the core of the Earth is cooler. Okay, I'm just saying. A lot of people don't understand these things. They think we have time. We don't have time. All right. So anyway, going on to the scripture. Did I read it? No, I didn't read it. Let me read it. Psalms 37. Don't worry about the wicked. Don't envy those who do wrong. For like grass, they will soon fade away. Like springtime flowers, they soon will wither. Trust in the Lord and do good. Then you will live safely in the land and prosper. Take delight in the Lord, and he will give you your heart's desires. See, there are bigger things than just wicked people. And wicked people don't do anything that's constructive, do they? They don't. Some of them don't even see themselves as wicked people. Okay? So you have to bear that in mind, that it looks like the wicked deeds that people do is prospering. But it doesn't mean that it actually is. Let's go into Rebel Moon. Rebel Moon says, all business, one of the quotes, I believe it was by the lead actor who's playing the lead character, Korra. Korra said, all business is revolution. All business is revolution. A revolution doesn't have to be something where it's violent, first of all. You know, it's about awareness. It's about an awakening. It's about people realizing things don't run the way how they thought they run, and it runs differently. And all these people, having been awakened to that, change their direction. Revolution. Revolution. A revolution is a circle, right? So a revolution helps you to come back to where you should have been. Maybe you're not, maybe you're way off from where you should have been, so you have to take a revolution to get back to where you begin, right? So having understood that, why is she saying all business is revolution in Rebel Moon, right? Another wonderful piece in Rebel Moon, we saw a little clip, was with Tarak and the animal. And he's speaking to the animal's understanding him. And he's saying to the animal, we are more. You know, we are more than the parts. We are more than the fear that binds us, you know, saying that we need not be afraid, even though we're shackled. We have a potential beyond that shackle, not only to break the shackle, but to make something good. Because it's one thing to break a shackle, but then you don't know what you're going to do after that. Freedom has to be utilized. Freedom is not just, I'm free. Okay, great, I'm free. What happens after that? You always have to ask yourself. Otherwise, you may find yourself back in bondage. You know, in a piece of scripture, it said that a man who has been cleared of demons, if he goes back to what he was doing, more demons will oppress him and inhabit him. In other words, you must know where this thing leads to, where this revolution is going. You must have an idea. Rebel Moon is coming out next week in theaters in select cities in the US and UK. I don't know if it's coming out in Brazil. That would be a good thing if they have it in Brazil as well. Because the Brazilians love Zack Snyder stuff. That'll be next week, but also on the 21st, not the 22nd, Rebel Moon will also be coming out. So I'm looking forward to that. Even though at present my finances are not the greatest, but I'm still looking forward to it. I'll have to do a subscription to Netflix. Hopefully I have the money for that. And then we will go from there. So let's get to it. Israel will fail in its goals. Let me start off by saying, when I say Israel, I'm talking mostly about the government of Israel, the extremist right movement of Israel, and the extremist right settlers of Israel. Now, I call them extremist right, but really and truly, they are the authentic Israelis, meaning the ones that came to Palestine. Those guys actually got what they were supposed to do, and they are doing. So they're following the tradition of what Israel was founded on. The left-wing Israelis, of which they come from many parts of the world to start with, and then on top of that, they hate what the right wing is doing. Even though they feel there should be a nation of Israel, they don't think it should be taken like this. They are the opposition. They oppose, generally speaking, what the right wingers are doing and the settlers are doing, the extremists. Let me explain to you again the objectives that the IDF and the Israeli government really want to do. They want to destroy Hamas. They want to at least neutralize Hamas. They also want to get the hostages. So far, they have not been successful in their tactical endeavors in getting any hostages. In fact, they've killed hostages instead of getting them. And two, they really haven't significantly done anything to Hamas. Okay? Hamas is not playing for a short game. They're not playing for a couple weeks or months. They're in there for the long haul. They're willing to go as long as it takes, military speaking. So Hamas, Hezbollah, all the other little resistance groups, something jihad or whatever, they're all labeled by the West terrorists. Just like how, I guess, in Rebel Moon, these people who come together as rebels will also be seen as terrorists of the state. Makes sense. They're a threat, so they'll be terrorists. And some of their methods will be very questionable, no doubt about it. All right? And that's what Zack Snyder does, though. Zack Snyder's going to capture some of this. Now, the point behind it is that these groups, first of all, these group of people are not found exclusively in Gaza or in Lebanon or in the West Bank. No. When Israel threatened and said that Hamas and anybody who agrees with Hamas is now a target by the Israel Mossad or whoever, they're serious, because it's a tremendous network It's not just, a lot of people think that Hamas and Hezbollah are financed by Iran. No, Turkey too. Not just Turkey, Jordan too. Jordan's got their hands in that. Why? A significant number of Jordanians are Palestinian. A significant number of Egyptians are Palestinian. A significant number of Israelis are Palestinian. And even the Israeli Jews who some of the Israeli Jews don't come from Israel. They come from Egypt, Morocco, Algeria. They come from Iraq, Iran. So a lot of the Israelis in Israel are considered Arab Israelis. There's a lot of them because Israel, in order to make up the population to fill out their nation, they set up conditions so these people would have to leave their Arab countries. And there's several different stories behind that. And so some of them, when they came to Israel, the European Jews considered them Arabs. They didn't even consider them Jews. They were more labeled Arab because they spoke the Aramaic or the Arabic or Arabic. Okay, so they were considered Arab. So there's this collection of Arab Israelis who are actually people who lived in Palestine. And then you have the Palestinians who may be Islamic and not Jewish. So they are considered Palestinian Israelis. And then you have also the Israelis who are European. They come from Europe. You have also other Israelis who come from Sudan and Ethiopia and Eritrea and other places, okay, which are, again, Israelis, okay? Now, the point behind it is when people speak with a broad umbrella about Israel, they really don't understand what's really going on in Israel. In Israel right now, in order to support this war, the voices you are hearing are generally the extremist right-wing Israelis, okay? I just was looking at one of the Knesset, I think it's called Knesset, one of their parliament, and who has been suspended for speaking against what Israel is doing in Palestine, and he is a Israeli. Okay, so what you guys need to understand, what a lot of people need to understand, is the Israelis. A significant portion of the Israelis, most of them are in Tel Aviv, but you have others, are against what is happening for several reasons. Actually, if you go on YouTube and you type in Israeli partner Palestine, right, or Palestinian, you will see several videos of Israeli women particularly speaking about the fact that their partners who are in Gaza or the West Bank, who they are estranged from, are suffering, and they are calling for the ceasefire because the person they are either married to, which they can't live with unless they're in Palestine proper, and they visit in and out, or that person and children, well, usually the children stay in Israel, but that person, that spouse and family members and in-laws and stuff, they're completely invested in these people because these people are family to them. Now, we have Palestinians who are separated, you know, the families are separated and haven't met each other physically. They've seen each other, of course, through Skype and all these things on the internet, but they haven't met each other physically in years, in decades, okay? So some people in the West Bank have not seen or visited their families in Gaza. Some in East Jerusalem have not seen or visited their families in the West Bank, etc., etc. Some people in the West Bank haven't seen and visited their families in the West Bank. Okay? And then you have people in Israel who are families with people in Gaza and in the West Bank and in East Jerusalem. So you guys have to understand how complicated this is. Okay, it's not just that this is not an open and shut case. And this is what Israel is not thinking about, because all of these people are going to become vocal once the right wing leadership and power starts to slip and slide. You're going to see all these people come out of the woodwork, and it's going to be fireworks. Okay, in fact, Israel may end up in a civil war over this. That's how serious it is. Okay, because there are people in Israel who they know they would be targeted right now because the emotions are high, and so people are giving up their civil liberties to this right-wing movement. Just kind of like what happened with George Bush with 9/11, and people started giving up the civil liberties, and we got the Patriot Act. So the same thing happened here, where even left-winger people, who were shocked by what happened, they just kind of gave up their liberties, and now people are being put in prison. People are being threatened. People have not court cases. They have because they're not going through the courts, because the courts will not admit their claims. Okay, that the claims are sedition and all kinds of crazy things. A lot of stuff's going on in Israel. Okay, a lot of crazy stuff's going on in Israel right now. Israel's in an uproar, right? But people are being muzzled. The press is being muzzled. I mean, Haaretz still publishes one or two things, because it behaves like it's pro-Israel, but there's a lot of media in Israel, and a lot of people have been threatened. Some people have been put in prison. Some people have lost their jobs in universities that they were teaching. Some people have been killed over this already in Israel. Okay, I'm talking about European descended Israelis who support this cause. A lot of people don't know that. There's a lot of support in Israel, significant, I wouldn't say a lot, but significant support in Israel to have the Palestinians get back their land from the 1967, after the 1967 agreement. They want back, give them back at least their 20%, because you took all their land. You took their damn land. You took their land. We're going to talk about all of that too. We're going to talk about all of that. It's just the level of wrong that Israel has done and committed is ridiculous in this 21st century. We're talking, this is 21st century. We should have been past this already. There should have been reparations. These people should have been either funded for their land, or they should have been able to move back into their land, which literally Israel is illegally occupying right now. Israel should have no police force, no military in those areas. They should have not. These people deserve their land. Don't tell me about Israel's safety. Israel's safety, they have the Iron Dome. They have a military presence. They have drones. They have all kinds of things. And don't tell me Israel's a small country, because Gaza is way smaller than Israel. They're picking on a very, very small country. Okay? Gaza's tremendously small. The West Bank, which is in the middle, it was Jordanian thing, and East Jerusalem. Come on, man. That's 20% of the country. 20% of the country, which means 80% of the country is Israel. Okay? 80% of the country is Israel. Okay? Not only are you disenfranchising these people, not only are you oppressing these people, but you're also trying to justify and make yourself seem like you're the victim in this whole thing, when you're not the victim in this whole thing. You're not. And people are beginning to realize that. Okay? In no way, shape, or form is this right. In any sphere. And the fact that the United States government is endorsing this, in spite of the population of the United States, the vast majority of people in the United States, 70% of the people in the United States are against what is happening. So not only is the UK and the United States, their governments, in opposition to the will of their people, but in Israel, while it's not the vast majority, I'm not sure if it's the vast majority, but I can tell you this: a significant amount of Israel. In fact, if they were to have elections tomorrow, a centrist or a left-wing person is exactly what the Israeli population, according to a study, will swing towards. They will swing completely away what Netanyahu is doing right now. Netanyahu and his regime and the white and not white, but the Jewish extremists, if we can call them Jewish extremists, are right now the ones pushing this. The settler population, it was the settler population that killed Yitzhak Rabin. Yitzhak Rabin, in spite of all the war crimes he did back in the Nakba, he turned from that way. And he decided, we're going to try this long process. It's a process of liberating Palestine, giving them back their lands. It was going to be a process, obviously. It's going to be a process. Obviously, it's not going to happen overnight. And so what he was trying to do under pressure was that, you know who killed him? And I'm not saying he's the only person. Yasser Arafat was also party to that. And again, shout out to Yasser Arafat and Yitzhak Rabin, rest in peace, both of them, because these guys had balls, okay? Because they were things Yasser Arafat did that was against what, the hard, militant groups wanted him not to do. And then what Yitzhak Rabin, because they were saying, we shouldn't have to give up East Jerusalem. We shouldn't have to give up any part of East Jerusalem. We shouldn't have to give up anything in the West Bank. We shouldn't have to give up anything in Gaza. This is what they were saying. And he also was working out with Yitzhak Rabin how they were going to work that out, especially with the temple, right? Israel's temple and the mosque. So that's what they were trying to work out. But quite frankly, both guys were assassinated. Yitzhak Rabin first in 1995 by an extreme right-wing person who more than likely was a settler. And I believe Netanyahu was behind that, and he actually incited that to happen. And he boasted on camera, he didn't know he was on camera, about how he sabotaged the Oslo Accords. Okay? So if you don't think Netanyahu is, he's not a good person like that. He isn't. Okay? They have been able to censor and contain certain things, but so they're Palestinians all over the place. Okay, there are Palestinians in Egypt, there are Palestinians in Israel, there are Palestinians in Jordan, there are Palestinians in Syria, Lebanon. There are Palestinians all over the place. Okay, there are Palestinians in Iraq, or every single country in the Middle East. Plus, there are Palestinians also in Pakistan, in the United States, in the UK, in Europe, Palestinians all over the place. So how are you going to, I forgot to tell you. So the plan is, like I said before, to clear out North Gaza. The plan is to try and ethnically cleanse these Palestinians out of Gaza. Now, I don't call Palestinians in Gaza Gazans. You know why? Because guess what? They're really 70% of them or more are refugees that came from what was then known as Mandatory Palestine. Okay, so you have to understand that these people are Palestinians. They're not Gazans. Okay, by the way, for those of you who don't know where Gaza is, you can read it in the Bible in the story of Samson, who was one of the judges of Israel who went into Gaza. What we call Palestine is really what is known in the Bible as the Philistines, or the land of the Philistines. This is why in Arabic, you hear them say Philistia or Philistine, okay? Because they are the Philistines, okay? Now, for those people who say, well, the Philistines were always enemies with Israel, that's not true as well. And that's a whole other story for another day, but we will keep. In fact, who welcomed these European Jews into Israel? Now, let me give you guys a little recap and a little history about, and you guys can go do your homework on it. There were always Jews in Palestine, always, even after the destruction of the temple and the Roman leadership destroying Jerusalem in Judea and the Jews having to flee. After 70 AD, they still remained Jews. Some of them went to Samaria, some of them were in Syria, some of them were in Damascus, etc. Damascus, Syria. All right, so some of them retreated different places. The thing about Israel, what a lot of people don't know, and again, a lot of things a lot of people don't know. If you guys know who the Messianic Jews are, this will make sense to you. But a lot of Israelites were converted to Christianity. A lot of them. A lot of Jewish people became Christians. They weren't called Christians. They were called disciples. The first time these disciples were called Christians was at Antioch. And if you know where Antioch is, you'll understand what I'm talking about, okay? So it was a derogatory term that was used for them because the Romans didn't like them. So to eliminate them, and they were not violent like that anymore. Because they got reformed, they got persecuted, okay? So the origin of Christianity literally came from Jewish people. This is why I can't be against Jews. I just can't. My religion says, no, I can't be anti-Semitic because that's ridiculous. The original disciples, the original apostles, Jesus, for crying out loud, was Jewish. Okay. So I can't go against that. All right. Some people say Jesus was Palestinian. They are 100% correct. He was Palestinian. That is correct. Was he Judean? He was Galilean. Okay. So he wasn't born in Samaria. He was born in Judea, also known as Judah. Samaria was split Israel. So Samaria, the capital of split Israel was Samaria, and then the capital of Judah was Jerusalem. Was it Jerusalem? It was Jerusalem. It used to be Hebron, then it became Jerusalem, I believe, under Solomon or something like that. So before that, it was one nation. It was known as Israel, and then Solomon's son Rehoboam committed so much atrocities that the Lord took some of the kingdom from him, and so Israel was split up into Judah and Israel. Jeroboam was the guy that ran Israel. Rehoboam ran Judah. Judah's holy place was Jerusalem, what they call Zion. That's where the Zionists get their thing from. And then when it comes to Israel, Israel's capital was Samaria. But then as time went along and you had all these atrocities and things that was happening, is now known as Judea. That's I guess the Greek version of it, and Samaria. So today, when you hear about Judea and you hear about Samaria, it's really the split Judah and Israel. Okay, so that's what, and they call it now Israel. They try to bring it back together. All right, so, but the point I'm making is that all this stuff that they're talking about, though, is contrary. What the Zionists and the right-wing extremists are doing right now is contrary to anything that they're supposed to be doing. It's just very contrary, you know. And people will say, well, prophecy is being fulfilled and blah, 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 blah. Maybe. But that doesn't mean we agree with it. It doesn't mean we endorse it. It doesn't mean we walk in that. We must walk in what is right, what is moral, what is correct. All right, so the other thing about this is today is a significant day for all people. Today is a day where you stay home, you do not work, you go on strike for Gaza. Well, no matter what part of the world you're in, don't go to work today. All right, if you're at work already, time to cluck out and leave the job and tell them why. You have to tell people why you're doing this. I am protesting for what is happening in Gaza, which is lives are being killed. It's a genocide in Gaza. People are losing their lives. This is not right. And I, as a human being, join in support of Palestine and the Palestinians there because their lives are being lost. So this is the way. So today is hashtag strike for Gaza. You can see it streaming below. Please do what you can. The other thing I want everybody to understand and know, and I know this is circulated already in the Islamic community because, you know, people are taking action and they're getting things happening. This is a taboo for some people in certain countries, and they even ban it in certain countries, but I don't give a damn. The BDS movement, which is boycott, divest, and sanction. Now pay attention to the things you buy in the store. Okay? Pay attention to the things you buy in the store. I loved, and I'm supposed to actually report it to these people. I love Gullion cookies. I love Gullion cookies. They make cookies that are sugarless. Okay, they make sugarless cookies. They use maltitose in their stuff, and also I love their chocolate cookies. But Gullion is manufactured and packaged in the UK, even though it's a Spanish company. It's manufactured and packaged in the UK. The problem with this is not that. It's the problem that Gullion is also associated with selling its products in the occupied territories. And we want to dissuade them from doing so. So I have stopped buying Gullion, and I'm telling them, listen, I'm not buying your product anymore. It's a great product and everything, but I support the evacuation of illegal annexing of the territories of Palestine. I also support the removal of controls over the ports of entry of Palestinian places, as well as the removal of the blockade that Israel has put over Palestine. And I want to say a couple things, which I think are very important points to note. Palestine made this high-tech, blockade to hold Gaza in. They also, guard the seas to make sure nothing comes from the sea, the Mediterranean Sea, into Gaza just like that. They can't really control the Rafah border, but they, made some treaty with Egypt so that they closed the Rafah border, whatever. Now think about what I'm saying. And this is why I tell you Israel will fail. Israel made this tremendous wall between themselves and the Gazans. If the Gazans would have come close enough to the wall, they get shot. Okay, they have automatic weapons and they have a monitoring system, etc. So they put this physical wall there to deter them from going into, or further than, into what they now call Israel. Now here's my question to you. That's a good one. How is it that Hamas was able to breach that wall and get into Israel and conduct their operations? And some atrocities were done by, I believe, citizens of Gaza. I don't believe Hamas. I haven't gotten any. Let me put it this way. I haven't seen any evidence of Hamas committing atrocities on civilians. We know Hamas killed military. We know Hamas captured him military. But Hamas themselves have over and over repeatedly said that our instructions were not to harm civilians. So I do not think Hamas particularly harmed the civilians. I do believe that other little resistant groups within Gaza, who may be even more ruthless than Hamas and not having direct orders under Hamas, may have invaded certain towns or villages after Hamas had passed and committed atrocities. So if people say maybe there was rape, maybe people burned towns and stuff, it's possible, because there are some really extreme groups inside of Gaza. They're not big groups, they're small little military pockets. And even Hamas spoke about how some of the people who kidnapped, which are civilians, that was not their order. Their order was not to kidnap civilians. Their job was to capture military people because of the information that they had. So unfortunately, some people also brought civilians in there, and aged people and little children. In war, sometimes, as you're working as combatants, you may take down civilians. Now, we're not talking about that, okay? But I don't think, because there are two very important points I've noticed. Hamas has a particular uniform and outfit. So if I'm seeing somebody and I can see their face, I'm not sure if that's a Hamas person. You get what I'm saying? Because the Hamas people, they keep their face concealed and everything. So some of the atrocities that people may be speaking of, which may have actually happened, I don't know. Israeli, we've only had Israeli reports. We have not had international reports. I wouldn't be surprised some of those things happened, though. But I don't think they were intentional. by Hamas. Maybe they didn't calculate, or maybe they did calculate and just was like, oh, we still got to do this. Now, the point behind it is they breached the wall. This was supposed to be a wall that was a deterrent for them to come in. They breached the wall. Okay? So that failed. Do you understand? That failed. Why do you have a wall then? Well, it could start more stuff and more. No, it just will bruise something else and they'll breach that wall. Okay, let's use some hypotheticals. They push all the Palestinians out of Gaza, right? Now they fill it up with settlers or whatever. What does that mean? You throw them all into the Sinai desert. Okay. Does that mean that they won't come back? Does that mean they won't attack you because they're in another country? No, it doesn't. And we've seen that they can breach walls. We've seen that they have the intelligence to be able to gather information in Israel. Whoever's leaking the information to them, you never know who it is. But they have information on Israel. And then from there, they can launch their attacks. First of all, very important point. I don't know of anybody who is such a, wicked, evil, criminal person who is going to kidnap people and leave them alive and not torture them. All of the transcripts we've gotten from Hamas have said that Hamas has not tortured or hurt. In fact, the people are considered as guests. All the people who spoke said they were in one place, together, one place. Or some of the people are actually with families in Palestine. They were taken in by families who actually had their families abducted in the West Bank or wherever, for them to be able to speak with these people and get an understanding of their plight. So if I'm thinking, I'm not saying Hamas is saints, but from the information I've gotten, I understand why some of the people who were captured have a transformative experience, because these people are able to explain their plight to them. And so you get more humanity than what is actually happening in the West Bank, with these soldiers beating up people and torturing them, and because they don't see people as people, whereas Hamas is probably opening these Israelis' eyes to see we're people. Why I'm saying this? Because there are a lot of Israelis. Yes, I know this catastrophe happened where Hamas was allegedly killed a whole set of Israelis. The numbers are still decreasing as we speak, even in the kibbutz and all the little towns and villages. But the point is that a lot of Israelis are beginning to realize, first of all, they understand why this happened. A lot of Israelis get it. We've been mistreating these people for years. I personally may not have been mistreating them as an Israeli, they're saying, but the people who are close to them have been mistreating them for years. What do you expect? The intifada's were all a retaliation. People say, where did it come from? Oh, it come from, everything is going well. Why would they do this? It's supposed to repeat. No, it came from somewhere. When the Israelis blow themselves up, I mean, who in their right mind, not Israelis, sorry, Palestinians, who in their right mind would go into a place to blow themselves up? There are two things that would fuel that, right? Extreme hate for the enemy, because the only experiences they have had with the enemy are oppression. And two, the second very most important point, what do I have to live for? What do I have to look forward to? Where's my hope? All right. People are not going to commit suicide unless they've lost hope. And for some of these people, I know, because I have attempted to commit suicide myself. And I couldn't see how I could live on. Okay. So you take that and then you put in these people's minds, well, maybe you could do one good thing before you get out of here. Okay. And that's how people become suicide bombers. Right? Think about what I'm saying. It doesn't come from just nowhere. All these people are animals, they're beasts. Oh, no, it didn't come from nowhere. Do the people hate their enemies? Obviously. There are a lot of Palestinians who hate Israelis because they don't know Israelis. They don't know all Israelis. They don't understand. All they know is the oppressors, the settlers, the idea of how vicious they are. Okay? So that's what they know. That's not Israelis. That's not Israelis on the whole. Now, some of them have an expanded view and they have an open mind to Israelis because they actually communicate with Israelis via Skype and internet and YouTube and other things. So they have a relationship with Israelis. Okay? I've seen it. I've seen documentaries with one man who, the IDF killed his daughter, and another gentleman whose son died, his daughter, sorry, died of suicide bombing. They both met with each other. They've never, I don't think they've physically been present with each other, but they've talked to each other. Okay? This is what is necessary. A conversation. These stupid chauvinistic acts of violence do not solve anything. If we should learn anything, is that in the negotiations they had for hostages, they actually got hostages. They actually had a ceasefire. Now, of course, this cannot happen when one group doesn't want to negotiate. So that is true. But when you look at it, unfortunately for me, I am not there. And I say unfortunately because, of course, you always feel like you should be doing something. Obviously, God knows in his infinite wisdom, the Most High, why you're not there. But the point is that this thing is so ego-driven. Some people just want to put things over people. You know what I'm saying? And so many atrocities Israel has committed against the Palestinians that even if the Palestinians was to try and do something that people think is so horrific, it doesn't compare. It pales in comparison to what Israel has done to them. It's like a bully beating down another guy and nobody's doing anything. Everybody's just standing up and watching this person get beaten down. That's just wrong. It's like when the police officer, who's now convicted and he's in prison, put his foot down on George Floyd's neck and everybody just watched and filmed it. No, I prefer to die trying to save George Floyd and just watch this happen. We cannot be standing around while somebody else is squeezing the life out of somebody else. That's wrong. We are implicit in that. And I know there's fear, but we are more than the fear that holds us. We have to become fearless. We have to say, this is wrong, and stand on it. And if we die, are you willing to die for what you believe? You have to get to that point. You have to get to that point. And I'm speaking to the people in Israel particularly. Sometimes you got to stand on your sword. You got to say, this is it. If I got to go out, I'm going out this way. You have to stand. You have to take a stand. A lot of times people are so afraid to do anything because they're afraid for their families. They're afraid for them. Sometimes if you would just stand up and stand on what you're saying right now and speak loudly and bravely, you could avert all that from happening. Instead of living a life where you can't speak what you need to say. You're contained. Your soul is taken from you. And you're now in a system where you're policed. So you have to decide. Some people said, give me liberty, give me death. You remember that? The great libertarian declaration by the founding fathers of America. Well, ask yourself that question. The liberties that you have right now, the freedoms that you have right now, they're being taken from you in Israel. You know it. I know it. The question is, what are you going to do about it? You have to take a stand. This is not an issue of, oh, well, The Palestinians wrong the Israelis wrong the Palestinians. I don't know which side to take. It's a complicated, this is not a complicated issue. It is not. Unfortunately, a lot of us, including myself, have swept it under the rug and just continued our lives. I am as guilty as the other person. I never looked into it until now. It's so obvious now. This is an atrocity. This is wrong. I haven't looked into a whole lot of things. You know, I'm now learning of all kinds of atrocities in the world going on, and I'm looking into them myself too. But what I'm saying is, what's going on right now in Sudan is just ridiculous. What's going on with Ethiopia and Eritrea is ridiculous. What's going on with Azerbaijan is ridiculous. Okay? And we could go on and on and on, and on and on. And it has nothing to do with political interests. It has to do with right or wrong. So, what I want you guys to do is look at things that are packaged. Look where they're packaged. Look where they are coming from. You do have foodstuffs that you eat where certain countries support. Of course, Starbucks has been taking a hit in certain countries, and they will continue to take a hit because Starbucks is another company, for those of you who don't know, that actually sells in the occupied territories. Okay? And I say that because it's not, they're not selling to Palestinians, they're selling to the Israeli settlers. They're making money off of an illegal, immoral system. And so Starbucks has been taking a hit, major hits. But it's important when you do not buy their products that you let them know why you are not doing it. You must send it into Starbucks so they know, oh, this demographic is not supporting me anymore. I can also put up on my YouTube channel a number of companies that are invested, and particularly we're talking about the occupied territories, that do business with the occupied territories or do business with the Israeli military, where at this point in time, the Israeli military is not doing the right thing. So we're going to boycott those things. It's very important when you're boycotting that you know specifically what it is you're boycotting, because there are, again, Israel is not on board. A lot of people in Israel are not on board with this. So you don't just want to boycott everything that's Israeli. You have to know what it is you're boycotting. Meaning, when you're boycotting, you want to boycott things that are supporting, for example, this occupation, are supporting this genocide, that are supporting in direct ways. And you need to also speak to these people and let them know. If you're going to speak in terms of divestment works like this. You speak to people in your country, whatever nation of the world it is, and if there are businesses or corporations that are somehow in some way doing business with Israel, then we need to immediately inform these people that right now you're involved in business with a state that is committing illegal acts and war crimes. It's been doing for a long time. In other words, we need to have the corporate bodies understand they need to withdraw their interests. So, for example, things that have to do with Disney affiliates that take AIPAC money. No, you can't take AIPAC money. That's blood money. And so you will either have to divest and don't receive money from them and don't support their agendas, or we're not going to see your movies. We're not watching your news. We're not trying to purchase into you. This is how divestment works. And boycott is closely linked to divestment. And then you have sanctions. The sanctions will come from officials. They'll come from, this is when it becomes official. And usually the sanctions come a little bit after, a while after these two measures. But it's very important that you as a consumer, the other thing that Israel's really known for is spyware, a lot of spy equipment and stuff, so surveillance and stuff like that. So if you're going to buy surveillance for your house or whatever, or some high tech something, or big companies are thinking of investing in surveillance, that again, we inform them that you should not buy surveillance from Israel and the technology, whether it's nanotechnology, whatever. Don't buy from them. Don't support them. Now, one of the things that the Arab nations is not doing, at least, they're still not removing their ambassadors from Israel. They're still not kicking out Israel's ambassadors from their countries. They need to remove themselves completely from Israel. They need to remove themselves business-wise from Israel. Your job, if you're living in one of those Middle Eastern countries, is to put pressure on them to make sure that they remove the ambassadors or Israeli ambassadors in their country. Same thing I will do in my country, which is Trinidad and Tobago. I'm going to put pressure on my government to make sure that they remove Israel's ambassador from Trinidad and Tobago, and that Trinidad and Tobago cuts ties with Israel if they have any ambassadors or anything like that here. Also, the affiliated countries that are supporting and funding them, again, you must also, I tweeted to the Prime Minister of my country, I'm going to tweet it to the Foreign Affairs Ministry, and let them know if the UK ambassadors, or the American ambassadors, embassy, if they are, as we know, America is financing Israel right now, and the UK is also financing Israel and even supplying military aircraft to them. If you are also not complying with international law and you're funding a genocide, then we need to cut diplomatic ties with you. We need to go drastic on these people so they will understand without certain terms that you cannot be doing these things. You cannot. We will not support you. We have to put that pressure on them so that they will listen to the majority of the world. The majority of the world, regardless of religion, creed, race, whatever, has seen the atrocities. And people say, well, they have never seen war before. This is how war works. We don't care. We don't care. We're seeing it now. We're awakened to it now. We are alert what war means, what it means. Most wars drag on and on and on and on and on, and just a lot of death and destruction. If this is what war means, then we don't want no war. We don't want no war. Okay? So we're going to use as many deterrents as we possibly can. Particularly, you want to hit these guys because they care more about economics. They care more about things than they care about people, clearly. Especially people who can't do anything for them. The Palestinians can't do anything for anybody. They're like humanitarian aid country, right? Like Haiti. Haiti can't really do much for anybody, right? This is what they think, at least. But it's if that's what they're focused on, then we need to nip that in the bud. Okay, the economics, we need to take it down. Now I understand that some people will say the BDS movement, they're trying to stop the BDS movement. They can't stop the BDS movement. You as a consumer have the right to purchase whatever the hell you want to purchase. They can't stop it. Okay, and you have a right to inform the providers that you boycotted why you did it. So that's what we're going to do. And I don't care if they target us. I don't care if they try to kick you out of the country. I don't care what they do. You stick to your guns. Don't change a thing. Okay? Because I'm telling you, yeah, other people might be living better lives than you, but your conscience is clear. You have a clear conscience. And that's the important thing. You can live a life you don't have to worry about, oh, how am I going to answer to the Most High when it's time? Okay? And for those people who say, well, the Lord said this and the Lord said that, and we shouldn't be caught up in things in this world and in rebellions and stuff like that. Tell them this. Hey, Jesus lived in the world. He lived in the world. Yeah, he said, give unto Caesar the things of Caesar and unto God the things of the God. So we're going to give unto Caesar the things that are Caesar and unto God the things that are God. You understand? Because Jesus didn't have to go get that fish and pull up that coin. No. The Lord said true religion is this. Pray for, not pray. What am I talking about? Help. Not pray for. Help. Prayer can only do so much. You got to get out there and you got to help the orphan, the widow, the fatherless, the motherless, and keep yourself unspotted before the world. So don't tell me that when I see somebody who's oppressed, when I see somebody that's being mistreated, that I should turn a blind eye like the priest on the way to Jerusalem when the Levite guy got beaten up by thieves. It was a Samaritan of all people that went and assisted him, because it's not about what you say, it's what you do. It's what you do. Okay? It's about what you do. And this is wrong. And I don't care what I heard some people talking about how, you're pro Hamas, or pro Hamas people need to be eliminated. Okay, so you're gonna kill all of us? You're gonna kill 7.6 billion people on the planet? Because a lot of us, we're not pro Hamas per se, but we get where they're coming from. We do. And day by day, they seem to look better and better. And the IDF does not look as good. They look terrible. You got to do damage control. And you can't censor people anymore, and Elon Musk, thank God, praise God for him. He has a different view. He's more pro-Israel, but he's allowing freedom of speech. He's allowing people to say what they need to say, which is important. God bless his heart. He gets that. And they've been targeting people in Palestine. They literally have executed a number of people who are not militant in any way, don't even necessarily support Hamas. They've killed people. They've killed press workers. They've killed intellectuals who've been teaching English and stuff. They've been hunting down these people for years, and now they get the opportunity to kill them and assassinate them. Literally are doing it. And it's not cool. And these people also have been on YouTube. They've been talking about what's happening in Gaza while it was happening. But they were in the southern end of Gaza, so they weren't being affected until now. Now they're in Kounis, Kaunis. You guys tell me how that's pronounced. But they're in Eunice, I think it is, and they're killing people left, right, and center, man. And then they're putting up their flags in there. It's so blatant, just so blatant, bold, and just disgusting. It's disgusting what's happening with these people. So we can't let that go unpunished. We can't let these people not have justice. They behave like there's no consequences to their action, but there are always consequences to every action we do, right? Now, what a lot of people don't understand, like I said before, this is a long game. So the resistance has only just begun, and we need to keep the pressure on these people. We need to put the heat on them. I may not be able to always be on here doing videos or on Twitter all the time, because I have other things I have to do. And then today my book is full, and my brother's coming here, and then family and everything. Oh, by the way, Christmas we're striking as well. Now my family wants to do some sort of Christmas celebration. I'm not going to be doing none of that. And I got all kinds of Christmas things out there because of my mom. But I think I'm going to actually strike. I'm going to strike this Christmas as well. So I'm going to join you guys in striking for Christmas. You can't have the people of Palestine being suffering. Plus, in Bethlehem, they've actually destroyed most of the Christian churches in Bethlehem. So ain't gonna be no Christmas celebrations for me either. I'm not celebrating. I'm sorry. My family's supposed to host something, but I'm not gonna be there. I'm gonna make myself separate and maybe do one of these streams. I'm not celebrating for Christmas. I'm sorry, but they can have the place. They can do whatever they want. If they're convinced that what I'm saying is true, then maybe we could all do a live feed or stream or something. Because it's just wrong what's going on, and I can't in good conscience see people suffering, and I'm benefiting. I'm doing well, and they're suffering. I can't do it anymore. I can't do it anymore. So for those of you, Christmas time, instead of buying gifts for your kids and stuff, send money to Palestine. Send humanitarian aid. These people need that. Open your hearts, man, as human beings, and try and help somebody. You know what I'm saying? And it'll be a strike that day, so I'm gonna strike. I'm not gonna do no Christmas nothing. Again, on Twitter, I'll put out all this stuff. I've been compiling all the war crimes as well that Israel's been doing. So I'm gonna put out some of that stuff. But again, if you guys haven't been compiling the war crimes, if you guys haven't been timestamping certain things, do it. I'm nobody. So if nobody can do that, a lot of you can do it, and some of you can do it better than I can. It's all about collective stuff. They can't target one person. They can shoot in the middle of a crowd and probably get somebody, But once it's a crowd of people, once we start doing volume and doing numbers, there's nothing, they can't stop us. They just can't. And everybody's irate about this in the world. It's not just me. And like I said, we're coming for them. We're coming for them. None of y'all going to escape. None of y'all are going to get away with this. None of y'all. And don't, I know that George Bush Jr. is still sitting down there with Dick Cheney, but we're coming for you too. We're coming for all of y'all. All of y'all. All of y'all. I just wanted to say that because, you know, this Iraq, the comparisons between the Iraq war, which was an unnecessary war, and they lied about it as well. That war and what's happening now are very, very similar. And so that's why I'm talking about that. Now, I already covered this, but though muted, Israelis and Palestinians in Israel, knowing the truth with common decency or connection to the Palestinians, support the cause of the Palestinians. All right, they support Free Palestine and more. So there are Israelis who support Free Palestine, a lot of them. There's quite a sizable chunk of them, actually. And it's growing as more Israelis see what's really the truth of the matter. Now, Israel has its own propaganda that's going on in Israel, but once you go on the internet, once you go on the internet, you're going to know the real is the real because you're seeing things in real time, right? And I'm not saying that, again, the Palestinians are the best people, they're noble people, but there's a lot of good people in Palestine, okay? There's some hooligans as well. There's some, just like the settlers, you got some hooligans in there, and they kill people, they torture people, they do all kinds of crazy things. There's sickos everywhere, okay? They wackos, sickos everywhere. But when you got these people leading you, that's when you got a problem. You got a serious problem. And I just don't see Hamas as wacko, sicko people. In fact, one of the heads of Hamas, a political wing, he spoke about one Israel and having the Palestinians and Israel coexist in harmony and unity like they used to in Palestine before. Restore that, you know, the nice bond that they had. It's just the demographic going to be a little bit different. But instead of fighting each other, he said, you know, he prefers a one-state solution. He thinks that a lot of Palestine's already gone and we're past the two-state solution. Let's just do the one-state solution, which I kind of agree with. The only thing is they need to have the rights and privileges that every single Jew has and representation. And I totally agree with him. And that's one of the heads of Hamas. So if one of the heads of Hamas, Professor, I forgot what his name is saying this. Now, another guy, he's talking about the two-state solution, which would be the 20% of Palestine, the West Bank, the East Jerusalem, Gaza. Let at least retain that and let it be a Palestinian state, which is connected to each other. So you don't have to pass through Israel to go all the way through Palestine. And so people can see their families and people from outside of Palestine can go in and so on, just like a normal country. And it has its military and it has its political system and it has its states and all that stuff. So, you know, he's just saying we need to regularize Palestine. So there's that view, which is the two-state solution. And then there's the one-state solution. Me personally, first of all, Israel is stealing some of Gaza's oil. You know, without subsidies. They haven't paid them any subsidies. And that's again because they've been stealing land and so on. There's been no war and they've been stealing land. The settlers have been going in and settling illegally in Palestinian territory because they feel that God has given them the right to the land, which most of them, the first Zionists weren't even Christian. They were atheists. But yeah. So I'm just saying there's just too much going on inside Israel, outside Israel, the world at large, the public eye, the public perception for this for them to succeed. And again, like I said before, one, they haven't been really significantly making a dent in Hamas. Two, they haven't even gotten the hostages that they said they were going to try and do through military means. They haven't succeeded with that. They haven't succeeded in taking central Gaza City. They haven't succeeded in, all they've succeeded in doing is terrorizing civilians. They've terrorized civilians. They have lied, saying that civilians are Hamas people giving up their arms when they're not. They're business people. They're normal people. So they're making it sound like they've succeeded at doing something when they haven't succeeded at doing nothing. Absolutely nothing so far. And so That's why I know they're going to fail, because they're trying to use shock and awe. They're trying to blow up things, kill people, kill a lot of people, but they're not really dealing with the people who resist. I think of them as a bully. They're beating down, they're oppressing defenseless people, people who don't have weapons. They have nothing to protect themselves. People talk about Israel has a right to defend itself. So what? Palestine doesn't have a right to defend itself? Do they have a right to defend themselves? Yes or no? On Twitter, I said this. I said, when America okay, so when America chose to veto the UN resolution of a ceasefire, I knew then that the countries who support the ceasefire had to take other measures. The governments of those countries had to take other measures other than just allowing this thing to play out. And my suggestions on Twitter were, one, that these countries come together and speak with the ambassador of the UN to support a independent or a hired, we call them mercenaries, but a hired hand to protect the UN workers in the UN and to protect the civilians of Palestine. I'm not worried about Hamas. Hamas is their military. They're going to handle their stuff. But somebody needs to protect the civilians. So my suggestion was that you hire mercenaries or you hire private armies who can fly, who can bring in peacekeeping support, because we can't use the UN peacekeeping support because NATO is not allowing UN peacekeepers. So you have to hire somebody outside of these, a private military force or several private military forces to protect the UN workers going into there and coming out, because the UN workers need protection. If Israel has a right to defend themselves, then UN workers and people working for the UN have a right to protect themselves. Secondly, the skies. Countries that can provide drones, countries that can provide, the nations that agree that they need a ceasefire, they need to put their monies towards having this private army either fly overhead or conduct drones overhead to shoot down the drones that are bombing, to shoot down, in other words, to create a no-fly zone. The goal is not to kill Israeli soldiers or anything, but to make sure that there's a no-fly zone over Israel, over Gaza. And the reason being that that will sort of equalize the playing field. And then Hamas, or the military that is trying to create a resistance, can be used in hand-to-hand ground combat, etc., and that can proceed. But at least you have some sort of presence. And once the Israeli army comes close to these privately hired people to protect certain places and to protect certain professionals, these people, if you fire on them, they will fire back at you. Okay? So that's very important, and they can go through the Rafah border or wherever. The point is, these people need protection. And if the United Nations officially won't do it, then a united set of nations who will send funding, etc., should be able to create their own private peacekeeping force outside of the boundaries of the United Nations. I sent this message to Antonio Guterres, who's the head of the Secretary General of the UN, and I think also to the Trinidadian guy, who's the president of the UN. I wanted them to know what my suggestion was, because you can't have a peacekeeping force. You need to have some sort of peacekeeping force somehow. So that's what I suggest. I would also suggest to Yemen and to other countries which are supportive of the resistance, that they send their drones to shoot down the drones over Gaza. What's more important, I know they're strategically trying to stop ports and stuff, but I think more important is the lives of the Gazans at this point in time. that their lives are protected. So drones sent to protect the lives of the Gazans, I think, is more important than drones sent to deter or to stop ships from passing through the Suez Canal, etc. That's tactically. Now, with respect to my suggestion, mainly for preservation of life, because so much life has been lost, and then people haven't been able to retrieve people under rubble. We don't know who's alive, who's dead right now. There are different people. Humanitarian aid needs to come in. That's why I said a military presence needs to be present to ensure that the maximum amount of military, of medical and physical supplies gets into Gaza. This is very important. The Gazan people can get the tent, and then the people who are going to be tending to them are protected. And that's why I'm asking for these people to think about these private companies. There are a number of private companies in the United States and a number of contractors, not just in the United States, but also in the UK, in Europe, who would not have a problem being hired. Some will even do it pro bono because they know it's so important to make sure that they're escorts for these supplies to get where they need to be, that all the people that need to get these supplies get the supplies. And they can also sort of reinforce and protect people. And again, you have these specialists who can fly drones and all these things, who can ensure that the skies above, because we're not going to tell Israel not to do what they're doing with their military. If they want to do a ground invasion, they want to hunt for Hamas, like they're saying, fine. But we want to keep it honest. We don't want innocent civilians being killed in this process. And that's the important thing. You want to go after Hamas, that's your right as a country. Okay, that's what you said. That's your directive. Go ahead and go after them. They're combatants. They can handle themselves. So, that's how that goes. But the civilians, particularly, and the people coming in to deliver humanitarian aid, they need protection too. And so I suggested to the United Nations that this is what they do. Now, the countries that support, Hamas or whatever, they have their own arrangements that they can do. I'm not saying that they should or shouldn't. America's right now, even though they're not going to say it officially, they're on the ground. They have their special forces directing Israeli soldiers and trying to help them. So if America could be on the ground, then clearly the surrounding countries, I might as well speak directly to them. You can get your people, your forces, your special forces on the ground also there. This is not rocket science. If you support Hamas, if you don't support Hamas, if you support Israel, again, fair game. You get your supported forces on the ground, you give them intel, whatever. So what I'm saying is that this doesn't have to be World War III, but in a way it can be World War III unofficially. You understand what I'm saying? So, but what I'm saying is you want more special forces. You don't want big military might. You don't want big armies. You want people who can give strategic advice, tactical advice. And Iran shouldn't jump into this thing. Yemen's already in there. Lebanon's already in there. Syria's already in there because Israel has been confronting Lebanon. And there's been an ongoing war there. There's been an ongoing war with Syria as Syria has been weakened. So there's an ongoing thing there as well. But with respect to other parties, I wouldn't suggest that you directly try to engage Israel and fight them. I would say use the best of what you have, or hire people to effectively carry out your objectives instead of trying to. But my thing is this: it's the preservation of life. I really more important. I think what is more important is the preservation of life. I don't think it's about carrying out ops, military ops. Yes, so we said the U.S. diplomatic and financial support means nothing as the majority of Americans do not support the war. I spoke about that already. I said again, the longer the war goes, the more disgust people will have with it, and the atrocities keep on mounting. And I've been keeping a track of the atrocities myself. And remember, these atrocities are not happening against Israelis because at this present time, it's not even a war. It's an assault on Gaza. supposedly a preventative war. Yes, we talked about this already. Everyone is globally sees that Israel has illegally grabbed land that is not their own, right? That as well. Okay. So what I basically said, and I covered all my bases, is when you watch the Rebel Moon movie, look at it through the lens of the Palestinians. Look at it through the lens of Israel as the mother world. Look at it through the lens of imperial powers such as Great Britain, Spain, France, America, Russia. Think of it through those lenses because this is what we're dealing with. But like I said before, wicked people, they're never going to ultimately, in the end, win because there's a judgment to come for those of you who believe that we are going to stand before the Most High and be judged, and we have to take account for every single thing the Most High saw. And he sees every single detail. But I wanted to just say another thing. We collectively as human beings have a lot of power. We don't use anywhere near what we're capable of. So I just want to tell you guys, as people of the world, keep on pursuing this, and then look for other atrocities might have happened in the world, and also look to effect change. Each one of you out there can effect change. We've seen it with the Snyder Cut. We've seen it. We restore the Snyderverse. We're now supporting Zack Snyder stuff, but we will go back. Like I said before, I'm going back next year to restore the Snyderverse. It's just that this year I'm focused more on Rebel Moon, and then this happened, and so I'm focused on this. But it's important to have, I think, entertainment that actually matters. And I know why they don't like Zack. I get it, and it's the same reason. These Zionists, along with the CIA and along with the propagandists, they've been able to create certain content and control, again, the masses. But Zack just keeps on knocking against that with his subversive stuff. So that's why they don't like him in Hollywood like that. And they just continuously try to down him. But it's all good. I'm going to catch you guys later. I am Christ. I am Disciple, a.k.a. Anson Phillip. You can also watch my commentary unboxing as What You Need. If you guys still want to donate to my channel, I can put the link for you guys to donate via PayPal. I don't get paid by Google. So I'll catch you guys later. Much love to you guys. To whoever is watching this and has watched it all the way to the end, I hope that this informs you sufficiently. I always pray God's love on people. I don't really care to kill people. I don't like even killing cockroaches. I have cockroaches in my house. One was in the sink, and I scooped him out the sink and I swept him out the house. Let the birds eat him if anything. But I'm not into killing. I don't like killing, even though I do like violence, like boxing. I like things where there's an even playing field. I don't have a problem with that. I don't like unfair things. So that's basically it. I'll catch you guys later. Anson Phillip, aka Christ I Am Disciple, out. Peace.